Ladies and gents, this is ML's Like Teen Spirit. Today I've got Karina with me. Karina, welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Karina, thank you for
Excited to
your
be here.
participation. Yeah, thanks for participating in this and thank you for your support. So, Karina, you are here today because I hunted you down and said, Karina, you must talk about this topic on these videos that I make. So, you've just qualified from your master's program and you came into my echo chamber by we're connected through being analytical people. Um, but you've got this topic there that relates to a project that I did back in the day. So I'll set this up. I worked on a project that concerned addressing echo chambers. So this is where too much of the same type of knowledge kind of rattles around in the same space, and users or consumers of that information become a bit biased in some cases, at the extreme edge, a bit crazy even. So people would know about political echo chambers might be where they've heard of this. But you've had a project here where you've tried to come up with a theory to solve this and a methodology. So could I ask you to, this was part of your master's thesis, congratulations on that. Could I
Thank
ask you
you.
to introduce the idea, please?
Yes, well, I have to say that I had many ideas for projects when I went in. This was one of them. I also had the idea of creating a perfume layering recommender system because it's different areas and passions. And then as working with my supervisor, we're trying to narrow down of the use cases where the data would be available and where we could make a major impact and difference. And that this one was highly escalated to be the one that we would be working on. And all of them were projects that I know somehow passionate about, including the diversity of thought is core that I know is the project. An idea that also came when I was thinking of the project was, have you ever had in a conversation with friends and they're talking about what they see on Netflix and they see it's like, oh, have you seen this show? And you say, no, it never pops up in my feed whatsoever. And I was like, well, it would be nice to have a little toggle in the top that says, it's like, no, show me things that are different and that I could even customize to say, doesn't need to be, oh my God, 180 different from what I'm watching, but can it be a 30% different, 40% different, so I can see other contents that I wouldn't be exposed to? So that's where the idea came as well. So it's like, how can we start expanding people's mind with their digestible content, digital content, if it is watching a show to articles that you're reading online and so forth. What does it need to be, or the recommender needs to be set it up to allow people to be curious about other topics that they usually don't see or read about it.
Got you. Yeah, I feel this way. I sometimes tell people on LinkedIn, I used to see people that I know, but my LinkedIn information now is a bit more like they are have similarity with my background and what I read. So I see more creators and so on, but I don't see that someone I used to work with has changed job. And I'm like, oh my God, like you've changed job. And they say, yeah, like 5 years ago, you idiot. So I sometimes feel like this in the business side. Karina, let's get down to these definitions then.
Yes.
So there's the Netflix one where someone is kind of receiving their recommendations. Let's get down to some of the definitions. So I use the word echo chamber, and in your work you have one called a filter bubble. So could you explain like how these are related and what's happening to people?
So it is usually how filters, how recommended systems work today, right? So in your case with LinkedIn, the recommended system from LinkedIn is probably using the same one. So think of now you as a person, and the first thing that you start doing when you're interacting with digital content is that you're teaching the algorithm what is your preferences. So you're creating that first layer, which is a filter, right? So you're filtering everything that I don't prefer stay out, everything I prefer stay in without that first bubble layer of around you. Then what recommended systems do is like they look at everything that's floating in that filter bubble that you have, so all your preferences, and they're going to be making recommendations to you on those preferences. So everything that is outside that bubble, it gets discarded, and it's probably why you don't see your friend anymore in your feed, or why people don't see other shows on Netflix or different articles different subjects that they usually don't read in their when they're looking at the New York Times online, for example, because the algorithm, the recommender is learning from that filter bubble, what is your preferences, which it is the first stage when creating a recommender system, is to create that user profile, right? So what I'm trying to challenge is, because when you have that filter bubble, it creates another inner bubble, which it is the echo chamber, right? Because now your recommended systems, it keeps an infinite loop, just recommend you same things that are similar to what you prefer. So you only get exposed to that same kind of dissent, opinion, message. It doesn't even have to be related just to dissent, but even like category. If you only read sci-fi, you're only going to get sci-fi. If you only read, negative things, you're only going to get negative things. So it keeps looping in that and creating that echo chamber. So this is what I was trying to break with creating the diversity of thought score.
So this dissent part is probably the sort of thing that people are recognizing. So they're hearing of this because it's creating extremism potentially on online platforms and so on and so forth. So
it creates the confirmation bias. The more I hear, more is confirming that I think I'm right, because I don't hear any other opinion, right?
So take us on to the diversity of thought score. Like, how is this thing built? Like, how would you describe it at a high level?
So let me describe first how recommender systems usually work. So they usually create that filter bubble, which it is your user profile. And then after that, they will create they will calculate the gap between the content that you consume and the content that they have in their total population, what you could consume. Then what are they going to do next? It is try to predict what's most likely you would like to consume next, right? And that's going to be by filtering out everything that's not in your bubble. So the predictability, the set is going to be on the things that you prefer, the most similar to you. And then they start looking to see what is now most viewed by other people, and they start ranking and predicting what you're most likely to see next and put those recommendations forwards. There are some recommendations that they're starting to build in a bit of a diversity there. What I don't like, and I think I want to challenge, is because it's still the platform telling you what is diverse and not you. Right? So it's still them in control of what they want to put forward as diverse. What the dot score is doing different is, first, it's looking at your filter bubble, and then it's creating a framework and telling where you are in your filter bubble in your journey of diversity from 1 to 5. 1 being like, no, you're very, let's say the word narrow-minded, you have limited view, you're only interacting with a very limited content, diversity in content, as either the same category, the same sentiment, the same outlet, or it could be the same kind of topics. And then it goes from 1 to 5, and 5 being like you're really well-rounded, open-minded. You're reading about everything, different views, different sentiments, different outlets, different authors, whatever it is that the patterns that we're looking at. So it first scores you, and it puts you there like from 1 to 5, and we use that I did that by calculating using channel entropy. So any category or any parameter that we have in the data set, and that's the way I created the framework as well, it could be leveraged for Netflix, it could be leveraged for articles for the New York Times. So it is not dependent of what data points you have available. Whatever you have, the platform has available, the framework still would work. In this case, the data that I used, it was for digital articles from a Danish newspaper that I could find online as part of the Rex's challenge that they have every year, which is to create recommender systems. So I use that data set, and that data set, it has everything that you're reading an article online with the sentiment for that, the dissent in opinion, it was inbuilt in there as well. It had also the length of the article, how long you spent on the article, the topics, the category of the articles. Things that they didn't have, and I had to include as part of like a dummy just to make sure that I have a little more richer data, was the outlet. If it's known that, let's pretend like I create different outlets to say if it's New York Times, if it is NBC, if it is BBC, anything that. And the reason why I added that, I don't know if you have heard of an app called the Ground News. It's one of the apps that is trying to do creating diversity of thinking as well. And the way they do it in their app is that they acquire data from agencies that rate the news outlets. And those outlets are rated if they are right, or if they are neutral, or if they are left with their content. So it's not really measuring the content itself. It is that outlet. If that outlet is a right outlet, left-wing outlet, or is a neutral outlet. So I want to bring that in as well as one of the parameters to do that. So what it does first, the score, it is calculate entropy for all those categories, like how far are you in all those categories, and then it brings all together to a composite score, which is the dot score. And then without any kind of weight system, because one of the things that I try to refrain from, it is to go down the rabbit hole to tell which parameters or each data points would be the most impactful in the diversity. That would be a different kind of research, that piece that have to say, like, no, yeah, this contributes to diversity or not. Right now, I'm assuming that no, any data point you have would contribute to diversity, and it creates that score. Then what it creates next after that score is also creating the threshold and looking where you are. So based on that score, where you are from 0 to 5, it tells you where you are, which level you are, level 1 or level 2, and it calculates also the threshold for the next level. So the threshold is used in the next step when I'm creating the labeling sets. So because that threshold is used to compare now against all the population of possible articles you could read to create a gap, to calculate, how far are you. And then that's where the dot score differs from other recommender systems, is that the first parameter that I'm allowing users to have control on, it is in there. How different you want to be that gap to be. Do you want to be 30% different, 40% different? So if it is 40% different, everything else is going to filter so that out of the population of available articles, it keeps everything that would be 40% different. Everything that is higher than that is super different, it gets excluded from that population, right? From the next steps. And then based on that, it starts creating article pairs. So the dot score doesn't score at each of the articles. It looks at the pairs of 3 or 4, like how many, and it does it another parameter the user can have control as well. Like how often, how much do I want to read at once? I want to read 3 articles, 5 articles, 10 articles. What is the plan I have to move me from level number 1, being narrow-minded, to maybe perhaps the level 2? Doesn't need to be like extreme jumps, right? So we say that, I read every week 3 articles. So please measure for me what 3 articles would help me to move forward in my journey to be more diverse. So it measures that, and then it labels if it is something that it would improve, not improve your score. And that difference, that delta, it's used by the system, and that's where machine learning comes in, to predict which combination of articles would improve that score that we calculate in the beginning. So that isn't a recalculation of the score, it's using a prediction. So for example, we're going to have multiple pairs of article, A, P, in case of 3 articles. So we have A, B, and C might increase the score by 10%, but A, B, and D might increase the score for 40%. So that one gets ranked top and on the top, and it gets to be recommended to you as the next sets of articles that you should be reading it.
Yeah, I love it. So for people thinking of the visuals for this, because they might not see may not see your thesis, but there's like these 5 stages, as you say, kind of from narrow-minded to sort of very diverse. And the key elements is how do users move between and know where they're at. So I think back to the start of this conversation where you said, "Oh, Netflix, why doesn't it have a toggle button so I can like check out something else?" The key elements to what you're proposing is way more user control over like I would like to not, like, if you call someone narrow-minded, most people are offended by this, aren't they? So like a real gentle way of checking would be like, hey, maybe I could just subtly consume different content just so I keep my eye on the other side of the fence or something like this. So you're kind of encouraging that control and transparency, so users have a clear picture of where they're at and can change these parameters. Today we have no possibility of this. We just simply
No,
get
it's a
set.
black box. You don't have visibility, and then you're at the mercy at the platform itself to tell you how diverse. If they are adding any diversity to the recommended system, it's still up to them, instead of you saying like, no, how diverse I want to be, how fast I want to move in my diversity journey, right? And I just no, maybe narrow minded. Yeah, people might get offended. Maybe we can look into more homogeneous
Yes.
consumption.
Well, we want Netflix to license this. So if anyone is watching, and Karina has this product available, I'm sure she will license it to you. But for finishing off, then, thank you for explaining all this. It's a
Yes.
fascinating project. I wondered if there was a way of, I've read the work, so I know you have to describe limitations to data, things I would do differently if I were doing it again. But what would be a way of summarizing like the main findings? So when you worked with this data set, is there a sentence you can think of that says like X% of users would have increased or something else would have happened? What would be a general way of describing the research in terms of a result?
Well, one, that it works. So we got really high results in the predictability of the score,
Yeah.
because one of the things that I had to do to validate was using the predicted score and rerun the entire scoring manually to simulate if the people have read those articles that we recommended, would have indeed increased the score. And it did work. It has, I think it was a 75% or 80, at one point we got to 80% accuracy in that, so it works.
So, Karina, I've got
Yeah.
one more question. So, thank you for presenting all this. Is there any platform that you know of that is adopting some of this? Because often, when there becomes lots of big players in any industry or segment or category, there's usually some kind of contrary player that says, "Well, we're not going to do algorithmic recommendations only. We're going to do something like this." Is there anything you can think of that is remotely like offers the control that you're proposing?
I haven't seen any of the major platforms, either news outlets or streaming, doing that, or even Meta or Instagram for the feeds doing that. What I've seen is different apps popping up. As you mentioned, the ground news is an app that is trying to do that kind of working and diversify your consumption offering. If you're reading something that is from a right outlet, like a right view outlet, maybe here's one that's neutral and here's another one that's left. But again, it's not allowing still you to control where in the journey you are, and offering you a mirror, right? Because change and just, I think for us to challenge the echo chambers, the first thing is for us to look ourselves in the mirror and say, where am I with my consumption? Because I might think I am quite diverse and I might not be. Right. So, and what are the things that I could do next?
Yes. So all left me very thoughtful, Karina. The project I worked on a long time ago was about a type of social media platform where if you wanted to make commentary on a topic, uh, to leave your commentary, it would force you to try and leave a counterpoint. So the big idea on this platform was to make participation to make it mandatory that you try and do those two things. And of course, it's very difficult to launch that platform because all the engagement happens from these big commercial offerings, and engagement is addictive. So it's kind of like these are such good ideas. I don't expect Meta to adopt it anytime soon due to profitability reasons and so on. But I guess we
That
just have to.
idea, John, actually would be something that I know to be brought back today, where, and we talked about like this in the past about critical thinking, right? Because
Yes,
that's exactly what that idea is doing. It's forcing people to first read, have an opinion, and analyze critically what are they reading in order to be able to write an opposite view. And I think more and more with the use of LLMs, we're gonna need that kind of thinking. So it would be nice, maybe could perhaps like be a guardrail for any information that you're getting out of an LLM. You should be able to write what is your counterpart in understanding what you read, what you got out of the LLMs, and
Well, it sounds like we're not seeing it yet then, Karina, so only time
No.
will tell on this matter. But here's the good news. Well, look, 2 congratulations for you. Firstly, completing your masters. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you so much.
Secondly, you have survived your interview with me. So thank you so much for doing this. I enjoyed all the insights, and it's a really interesting subject matter. I'm going to keep my eyes out for something remotely like this, but I enjoyed the work
Well,
very
I
much.
hope that we see more, and I hope that we get some traction, and the people start asking the platforms for something similar now that they know it's possible,
And
right?
Karina, all I ask is when you're a millionaire and you're running a recommendation algorithm for some new website, just don't forget me. How's that?
No, but have you ever seen any data scientist being a billionaire?
No. Karina, on that bombshell, we're done. We've hit time here. Thank you again for all your insights on it. Ladies and gents, this was ML's Like Teen Spirit.